So, hey guys, Chauzu here. This is my second part of my 2023 OPTC tier list, and today we're going to go over tier 2 and tier 3. And if you haven't watched my first video with tier 0 and tier 1, feel free to click the link down below. I will also have a link to the introduction to how this tier list works. So yeah, let's get into it. We're starting with tier 2, or well, it's basically units who got 2 points from categories. You can get 1 point from every category. There's 10 categories, you can get max 10 points. So these units got 2 points in the end. So let's see how much I remember. If I forget something, I have the tier list points up here in the video. I'm not going to show them on the recording because then you might see some higher point units and get a bit spoiled. I want to keep these a surprise for people who care about that. So first we have 6+ V1 Whitebeard. He gets a point from me for being a good potential damage dealer that pierces normal attacks only, and he also gets a point for PvP, where it's really relevant. Ace gets a point for Treasure Map, where he has been a pretty good usage there, especially since burn is very relevant and he can speedrun. Other than that, he also gets a point from me, pretty sure. No, he gets a point for Grand Voyage Kuro, of course, where he is supposed to be good, but he's actually not that good, so he might actually lose that point in the future. Log Luffy gets 2 points. I forgot that I should highlight the units I'm talking about. So Luffy gets a point for being very good, potentially good in Treasure Map, very low CD, can wave clear and reduce CD. And he also gets a point from me for being that low CD, which gives a lot of potential for longer content that is sadly not that relevant, but still. Doffy gets 2 points. 1 is for PvP and 1 because I do like his kit a lot, like Captain ability, gives some good matching orbs. Special is pretty interesting, I've used it a bit, but it's mono driven, it's not the best. It's also 2 turns that could age well. Cavendish gets a point from me because I do like just splashing him on a team and doing big damage to strength. He also gets a uniqueness point since I realized that he can actually delete undeletable buffs, and that could prove usable sometime, and so important knowledge to remember because literally no other unit in the game can do that. It's just Cavendish, it's pretty insane. It's just attack and orb boost though, but still. Moving on, we have V1 Kizaru, who gets a point for PvP. He also gets a point for me because he's actually a really cool unit. Attack and call affinity for Sai, good level 1 special, can reduce CD, but my main issue for him is that it's just slasher shooter, and it's not the best class in the game, so to say. Zoro gets 2 points. 1 is my point because I do like him. He's only slasher, but Chain Lock for slasher attack boost, and if you already have that, you can get a color affinity boost, so pretty versatile. He also gets a point for Grand Voyage Morgan, but he doesn't really, there's better Zoros to use now, so he might lose that point in the future. Usopp gets a point for being unique. Honestly, he should get a point from me as well, so he might get that in the future. He also gets a point for Grand Voyage Kuro, where he's basically on every team. Dog gets a point for Pirate King Adventures. I've literally used him in Pirate King Adventures. Let's see what other point he got. It was a uniqueness point, which does kind of make sense. He does a lot with this kit with Chain Boundary and Utility, and it's a 3-turn Chain Boundary, so yeah, the fact that I put him on a team in a Grand Voyage shows that he had a role that was difficult to replace. 6+ V1 Sanji got a Chauzu point because I like him a lot. He also got a point for Grand Voyage Krieg. He should have got one more point, I realized when looking into this beforehand, because he is unique with his captain ability, even if it's not meta relevant, but it should get a point for the uniqueness, and he does get a big captain ability with that, and avoid any debuff stuff like that. So he might go up next month not next month, because then I'm just adding new units, but in the future he might go up. Magellan also gets a uniqueness point, and he also gets a Parking Adventures buff. He's turned out to be quite the menace there. I've seen some JP players use him, and you can just stall forever with his captain ability and special, while also killing every stage with his really good ability to apply poison. So that's been good to see, him becoming a bit relevant again. Boa gets a point for Treasure Map with her auto launch special, which is could see some good use. Haven't seen it used yet or used it yet myself, so this is a point she could lose. She also gets a point for Grand Voyage Smoker, of course, where she is literally unreplaceable. Sabo gets a captain ability point. He has a really cool captain, pretty strong, fast, speedrunner, and he resists a debuff. Don't remember which debuff now, if it was special reverse or special bind. He also got a Chauzu point for me because I do like him a lot in general. Judge also gets 2 points. He gets 1 point for being arena speedrunner since he's like a -3 CDs. That's kind of insane. And he also got a Chauzu point because I do like his captain ability making non-beneficial orbs matching, together with being fast. Sadly, his special is a bit lackluster and such, which make him a bit harder to use. Rayleigh gets a point for Grand Voyage Arlong, where he's required still. And he also gets a point for just being a super good unit in general. Like, I don't think anything about him is meta, but like as captain, speedrunner, potential auto activation, and you also have the special that can give orb boost and chain lock for 3 turns, 2 stages, like super solid unit. Kusan also similarly got a point from me, just like V2 Akainu. Just very viable, but nothing about him is really meta, but he does get an extra point for his PvP ability. Luffy gets a point here for being unique with his captain ability, while not being super great, but is still super unique with the different forms and such. And he also gets a point for his special, which is really solid with level limit break. The only reason I don't use it more is because I try to be accessible, and most people don't have him maxed. Nami gets a point for Grand Voyage Arlong as well, also still irreplaceable, and she also gets a Chauzu point because I end up using her a lot. Very good utility, orb manip, orb boost, and call affinity, so just really good. Katakuri gets a Chauzu point because I like this Katakuri a lot. I use him a lot. I even gave him a point for his special, which might sound weird, but like it's super low CD, reduces CD, orb manip, orb boost with level limit break. You can even get a delay conditional if they're not immune. Like, I use him so much. He's really relevant, I'd say. Sunny gets a point because I made a Grand Voyage team with him against Smoker. So that earns him a point in my book. And he also gets a chain cap point because he's a good chain cap now with level limit break, and he's always been a very good chain cap in the sense that he can remove all chain debuffs with his special, which is very useful. Garp gets a Parking Adventure point. I feel like he's often usable there and good, especially Kobe support. And he also gets a Chauzu point because I felt like 1 point is very little for Garp since he always sees so much use. But nothing about him is super amazing, and often the reason he ends up getting used is that Kobe support with the 3-turn attack down removal. That kind of pushes him over the edge, but nothing about the kit is really amazing. Zephyr gets a Chauzu point, I'm sure, because I love shooters, and Zephyr got a really nice buff. And his special also gets a point because it's like full board orb manip, 3-turn attack boost. You also can remove 4 turns of bind, the spear, defensive effects. If you want to remove more defensive effects, you can run Ein if support. And there is also a Kisna Recruit bins now that can remove 1 turn bind the spear, so just super flexible, special, even if it's just shooter, but I felt like it's good enough. Might remove it in the future though. Carrot gets a Chauzu point, because I do end up when I get the opportunity to use her, and I love all of these barrier ignoring minks in general. The reason she's even here is because 6-star Carrot is only a 1 turn captain swap, while the 6+ is 3 turns, and sometimes you just want the 1 turn swap. Sabo here, I wonder what points I gave to him. Let me try and find him, because yeah, I didn't give any points for Grand Voyage, which I should have done. He's really good against Grand Voyage Kuro, so should have been 3 points. Instead, I gave him points for his special, which I think is really solid and sees a lot of use. The burn is a very nice bonus. And he does get a Chauzu point, since I do end up using him quite a bit. Just sad that the 6-star didn't also get a level limit break buff. Sora also gets a Chauzu point, because I've ended up using him quite a bit in general in various circumstances. And also a point for being really amazing for the Grand Voyage, Mihawk and Zoro. Vito Mihawk has a PvP point. He's been very solid on Dex teams for his repeated HP cuts. So he goes pretty... He's basically an alternative to Blackbeard if you want to be more free spirit focused. Don't think he sees that much use in PvP nowadays, might remove this later. He also gets a Chain Cap point. I also love using him as a Chain Cap. We need more Chain Caps. Luflaw gets a Chauzu point, because it's maybe the legend I have the best memories with. I still love using them today when I get the chance. And they also get a crewmate point, because their swap is really good. Losing relevancy because Carrot and Wanda exist, but yeah, for now they have it. Might remove it in the future. Vito Big Mom gets a Grand Voyage point, because she is the queen of Grand Voyage. She's relevant in 3 Grand Voyages. She's like the only legend who's relevant in 3. And she gets a Chauzu point for that, because she's the queen of Grand Voyage. But she's an awfully designed legend. Otherwise, probably, maybe the verse 6+ we've gotten for duo units and such, probably. Well, according to this tier list, she is, so I might as well trust myself, right? Yak gets a PvP point and a uniqueness point, because while being a useless niche, he still can extend every useless effect in the game, like increased, like end of turn healing, end of turn damage. He increases those by 1 turn, but no good effect like attack boost or anything. Rebecca gets a point for their special, still great to this day, and for their crewman viability, like they have a good special, they even have a swap you can make use of, so yeah, nothing weird with that. Rayleigh gets a Chauzu point. I love units that ignore defensive effects with special, and he also gets a point for being relevant in Grand Voyage, but he really needs a 6+ now. Sabo gets a point for Grand Voyage Smoker, where Forest has made some really good teams with him. Sabo also gets a point for Super Boss, where he's seen quite a bit of use on the free spirit focused side teams. Same for Law, also for Super Boss, can even be on the same team as Sabo together with Gear 5 Luffy and such. And he also gets a point for PvP, of course. Akainu gets a point for Grand Voyage Alwida, where he's one of the best legends. And he also gets a Chauzu point, because I like using him and I fit him in a lot of teams. Law also gets a Chauzu point, mostly because he's always been fun to use in Grand Voyages and Garp challenges back in the day. And he also gets a point for Grand Voyage Zoro and Mihawk. Big Mom also gets point. Pretty sure 1 is uniqueness. I should probably check here. I forgot to check here beforehand. Versus Big Mom. Like, might as well get this right instead of rushing. Just because of that I can't find her. Let's see here. 1 at a time. There we go. Versus Big Mom. Oh yeah, crewmate viability. Not uniqueness or crewmate viability because she does have an interesting versus special. Can ignore defensive effects, turn recovery to stamina, stuff like that. And she also gets a point for being great in Grand Voyage versus Krieg, which I forgot. Magellan gets a uniqueness point due to having double special and being able to remove poison as captain. Like, he does a lot of unique stuff. And he also gets a Grand Voyage point for Grand Voyage. What's it now again? Luffy 2. Subconsciously made a team where Magellan was captain there, which was very, very cool. And there's still not that many teams for that content, so get the point, Magellan. Moria gets a PvP point, and he also gets a point for Grand Voyage Krieg. Shanks also gets a Grand Voyage point for local sea monster, and he also gets a crewmate point for having a unique versus special. He can always set defense to 0 and get a death down conditional, and he ignores any interrupts since he's a versus special. Marco gets a Chauzu point because I think he's pretty viable, but he doesn't really stand out in any special way. And he also gets a point for Grand Voyage Krieg as well. The Straw Hats here get a uniqueness point. They are very unique. And they also get a point for the special, which is really strong. Vivi gets a point for Pirate King Adventures, where she's really good with utility, a relevant super type special. Her own special is also pretty useful. Don't remember what more she got a point for, so let's see if I can find Vivi. She also got a captain one, yeah. Her captain is just really solid in general. Kuma gets a PvP point, still pretty good on strength teams. And he also gets a point for being the optimal captain for the Ambush CP9, which is one of my favorite contents. So, yeah, I want to give him some bonus points for that. Like, I could have given him a Chauzu point instead, but yeah. Boa gets a point for both Pirate King Adventures and Treasure Map. She ends up seeing a lot of use in both with her utility and Barrier Pen special. Like, she just has some unique qualities that makes her end up seeing some good use from time to time. Koala is a Treasure Map booster, so she gets a Treasure Map point for that. And she also gets a point for Super Boss Kizuna because she ends up seeing use most times we have a Quick Boss. Kaido Crew gets a Treasure Map point for being one of the best wave clearers as captain. And they also get a Garp Challenge point actually because they are the best unit for 2 of the colors for basically every Garp Challenge. Brook gets a Grand Voyage point for Buggy. Oops, I moved him. He also gets a point for being unique, which he is. And unlike, for example, Hawkins, they get a point for being unique or for being, yeah. Because we had Brook who power creeped him, but Brook is his own color, so not really the same thing. Who's Who got a point for Super Boss, I think. Let's double check. Yes, for Super Boss, he's seen some use there. I also gave him a point for his captain ability. Could have maybe given him a point for special as well, but in my experience, he rarely fits in as a sub, but as a captain, he does pretty well and makes his special more reliable as well. 6+ Uta here gets a point for PvP and Grand Voyage Krieg. Not good for anything else. Jinbei, point for being a perma treasure map booster, and also a point for Grand Voyage Smoker. We have one team with Jinbei as captain. Boa gets a point for being unique. I don't remember the other point though. Let's see. PvP, yes, of course. She has seen some use there. I don't think she's particularly good, but she keeps seeing use on defense mainly. Hawkins gets a point for Grand Voyage Local Sea Monster, where he's a really good captain and enables some new interesting teams. And he also gets a point for being unique, I think. Right? Yep. Bonnie gets a point for being a treasure map, perma booster, and also a super boss point because she's pretty good on paper there on the Free Spirit focus teams. Doffer Croc gets a point for being pretty unique with their special. Don't think it's a particularly viable special, but it's unique, buffing whatever buff you want by sacrificing HP. And they also get a crewmate buff since they have a pretty interesting swap. The wives get 2 points. One is for their crewmate viability with a pretty decent super tandem. And they also got a point for their special, which is good in our Coom. Definitely meta on a meta level, that special, but still hard to see use so far. Kawamatsu gets a PvP point. I think is really interesting for slasher teams, and he gets a point for being unique with his double special with one orb manip and stuff. Kobe gets a uniqueness point. He's definitely unique, and he also gets a Chauzu point because I feel like he does have opportunity to see use, but he's very hard to fit on teams in general. So those are all the units that got 2 points. Thankfully, from this point, every tier will be a bit smaller. But to round out this video, we will cover the 3-pointers as well. Move it up a little bit more. So yeah, now we have units that got 3 points total from the 10 categories. First we have 6+ V1 Sengoku. He got a point for treasure map, where he's pretty interesting. You can use him for wave clear, or you can use him on a final stage and get an attack boost, or boost, and a chain lock with support, which I'm interested in. He got a point for arena because he is a -3 speedrun captain, and I've cleared a ton of arena with him. He's really good. And he also got a Chauzu point because I just love his design and viability and everything. Maybe could even get a PvP point in the future. I'm a believer in Sengoku in PvP if we just make Cerebral more meta. Marco, 3 points. He gets a point for his special, for being a sub, and I also gave him a Chauzu point because I just think he's very interesting in general, and I think he can start seeing a bit more use eventually. Jimbe gets a PvP point. He gets a point for Grand Voyage Krieg. And I gave him 1 point myself as well, I think. Like, if fighters get good eventually, his special gets a lot better since it has that color affinity to fighter 2 that really sees any use. Law gets a point for uniqueness. He gets a point for treasure map where he has seen use. And he gets a point also for Pirate King Adventures. And usually Law is teamed up with like Vito the Flamingo to help you kill a stage. Sometimes for wave clear as well, for example. Not wave clear, but yeah. He only hits one enemy sadly, but forgot I need to highlight the units. There we go. Luffy has always been bad, but he's starting to see some use in treasure map. A lot of people use this Luffy for wave clears or mini boss one-hit KOs, I should say, because he does such absurd damage. It's like 600 times his attack, one of the biggest nukes in the game. He also, of course, gets a point for Grand Voyage Smoker, and he also gets a Chauzu point because he has reduced CD potential abilities. You can use his special from the beginning, which is very interesting. Big Mom gets a point. She gets a uniqueness point, and she gets a treasure map point because she basically kills any dex unit after using her special. Really strong. And she gets a Chauzu point because I like her unique captain ability and design, but she's not super viable in general. Capone gets a super boss point. He's often used to help you handle death hits and such. And he can help for death hits over multiple stages thanks to his, well, taking damage at least he can help with for multiple stages with his unique fortress. I don't remember the name right now. He also got a uniqueness point for that, and also a Chauzu point because you never know when you'll want to use Big Father. That's what it's called. V2 category gets a point as well. 3 points. He gets a point for Grand Voyage Smoker. He gets a point for... Should probably double check. I don't really remember all of the points here. I hope it's okay with you guys that I do double check, just that we set the record straight. He gets a PvP point, of course. Used a lot on fighter teams. And he gets a uniqueness point. He's definitely unique. Germa gets a point for Pyro King Adventures, where they've seen a lot of use to stop opposite captain swaps and such, which has been pretty common in Pyro King Adventures. Also an uniqueness point. And what else could it be? I'm looking again, if you're curious. The Chauzu points, of course. I do like them a lot, they are very interesting. Rebecca gets a point for their crewmate viability with their swap in particular, which makes their special a lot more useful since you get a lot of damage from one unit and you also have healing and such. They also get a point for Grand Voyage Arlong, where they've been really good and designed for it. And they also get a point for Super Boss. They end up seeing used there from time to time, mainly for their swap, since it can be hard to fit that. Chain multiply boost, even if it's getting easier. Versus Akainu gets a point for PvP. He gets a point for Grand Voyage Luffy 2, where he has been really good, and he gets a point for uniqueness. Sandy gets a treasure map point for being a booster. He gets a super boss point because, well, he's a straw hat at his side that lets you see some use automatically in super boss. And he also gets a uniqueness point, so since you can get a 4-turn boost of either attack or orb, which is very useful. Also self-launch captain ability, like there's a lot of unique stuff with him. Ulti page 1, point for super boss. They get a point for the crewmate viability with their swap. And what else do they got a point for? I need to double check. Here we go. They also got a point for Pyro King Adventures, which I think is a bit iffy point. Like, I get why I put it there, because you can get a lot of special damage from one unit. But we'll see if I keep it. They've actually cleared Luffy 2 as well, so maybe I should give them an extra point for that. We'll see next time I update. Odan, point for PvP, point for Super Boss, and they also get a point from me for being a very good glue unit that you can fit on a lot of different teams. Luffy, PvP point, also Super Boss point, and a crewmate point, because he has a very good super tandem, even if his special is a bit whatever. Black Maria gets a Grand Voyage point for Luffy 2 as well. She gets a point for her captain ability. And what was the last point? It gets harder to remember the points now when there's more of them. Black Maria also gets a point for crewmate viability. And with that, I mostly refer to her sailor because she has a -2 paralysis sailor, which is indeed very unique. She of course also has the super tandem potential. We4 Big Mom gets a point for Grand Voyage. She's good versus Grand Voyage Creek. She also gets a point for Super Boss, which is useful with her super tandem. This is V5 Big Mom actually. And also some crewmate viability due to that super tandem being pretty good. But we'll see if she keeps that point in the future. V3 Whitebeard, the young one, gets a point for Treasure Map, where he's really good for wave clearing stages, and then you have a really strong captain ability dex unit for final stage. So you wave clear with the super class basically. He's very unique since he has a special that does HP cut through normal attacks only. It's only Whitebeard in the game who do that, as well as Radio Poison, I guess. And what was the final point? Let's see. Final point was Parking Adventures, where he has seen a lot of use for Veil Clear against mini bosses, since he's one of the strongest captain abilities with end of turn damage. Killer gets a point for Grand Voyage Luffy 1, where he's really good, and he also gets a point for his special and crewmate viability, because I think they are really good on paper, even if they haven't seen much use, so that also means that those points are in danger of being lost in the future. And finally, Kanjuro gets a point for Super Boss. We had one Super Boss where they were literally unreplaceable. Also a point for uniqueness, and they also get a Chauzu point because I just really like the design. A lot of these units with the uniqueness, and they're not just bad, so I do like them. Okay, this one turned out to be 30 minutes. That's a good length. So in the next video, I will go over tier 4 and 5. So feel free to check that out after this video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.